More than a century ago, in the mountains of Germany, a boy was born. A boy who would lose his parents. A boy who would be duped of his inheritance by his own flesh and blood. An orphaned boy who would soon change the watchmaking industry forever. The boy was none other than Hans Wilsdorf, the founder of Rolex. In this video, we will explore how Hans built one of the most influential luxury watch brands in the world with almost nothing to his name. We will also uncover the business tactics used by Rolex, which helped them achieve the cult status, while revealing secrets about this famous brand that will leave you shocked, like the weird story behind naming of the brand, and the story about how Hans paid a swimmer to swim from England to France, wearing a Rolex watch. Hans Wilsdorf was born in 1881 in Klumbach, Germany, to Anna and Johann Wilsdorf. Hans' mother died when he was just a young boy, and soon after, his father passed away, leaving Hans at the mercy of his uncles when he was just 12 years old. His uncles stole his inheritance from him and sent him to boarding school. Though at the time Hans was unhappy with this decision and felt betrayed, he realized the value of the prestigious education he received later in life. Hans had a tough time dealing with the emotional setback of losing his parents at a young age, but was slowly able to channelize his loss towards his pursuit of academic excellence. Hans had a knack for numbers and also showed a keen interest in learning multiple languages like French, English, and German in school. His linguistic abilities allowed him to travel to other European countries like England, Switzerland, and France in the future. Hans was exposed to students from different countries and became close friends with a Swiss boy in his boarding school who would often tell Hans stories about his hometown, La Chaux-de-Fonds in Switzerland, which was renowned throughout Europe as the hub of luxury watches. This made Hans fascinated by the watch industry from a very young age. After completing his schooling, Hans got his first experience in the business world when he started working for an export company specializing in the trade of exquisite pearls. Hans observed and absorbed all of the business strategies used by the trading company. He understood the tricks of the trade of the luxury products industry, which helped him immensely while marketing his luxury watches in the future. Even though Hans was working in the export industry, he was extremely fascinated with watchmaking, thanks to his Swiss friend from boarding school. In 1900, Hans jumped at the first opportunity to actualize his dream of working in the watch industry when he got a job offer to work as an English correspondent for the Swiss watchmaker Messer Cuno Corten in La Chaux-de-Fonds, even though it meant taking a major pay cut. Hans Wilsdorf got the job because of his excellent communication skills in English. Hans buried himself in work because of his long-standing interest in the watch industry. He was hungry to learn of the business and marketing strategies used by Cuno Corten, which mainly exported pocket watches, but also manufactured some of their own original pieces from scratch. Cuno Corten's annual revenue was well over 1 million francs. Hans's day-to-day activities involved quality control and manually winding more than 50 pocket watches a day to ensure they were working properly. He gained in-depth knowledge about the mechanics and composition of watches and spent his free time picking the brains of the watchmakers. In 1903, Hans had changed jobs and moved to London to work for another luxury watch manufacturer in a sales and marketing role. He was successful in cracking multiple deals with new clients and was able to adapt the marketing strategies he had learned in his first job to the watch industry. In his autobiography, Hans writes, "Two things struck me most forcibly about my new employers. On the one hand, their commercial competence, and on the other, their lack of specialization." While working in London, Hans fell in love with a woman named Florence Frances May Crotty and got married with her in a few years. Hans's ultimate goal was to start his own watchmaking business. Hans's brother-in-law, Alfred Davis, was well aware of his love for watchmaking, and Hans was successful in convincing him to invest in his business. In 1905, the two of them partnered to create Wilsdorf and Davis Limited. The business was based out of London and created with the objective of providing high-quality watches at an affordable price point. Let's just pause here and rewind. Didn't you think Rolex came from Switzerland? Watch later as we uncover the surprising reason behind the shifting of Rolex's headquarters. I'm sure you're enjoying Hans's inspirational business story. Please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any future business case studies. Rolex was Wilsdorf and Davis's flagship brand, but to understand how they came about popularizing the world-famous luxury wristwatch brand, we must first understand the trend of the watch industry back then. Up till the early 1900s, pocket watches were very common. Wristwatches were used as jewelry by women. Due to their size, wristwatches consisted of complex smaller movements, which reduced the accuracy of the time shown by the watches. However, Hans Wilsdorf was a visionary. He recognized the functional benefits of wristwatches as compared to pocket watches. It was almost unthinkable to create a wristwatch that would show the accurate time back then. Hans was not afraid to go against popular opinion to promote wristwatches. He took a calculated risk by getting in touch with Hermann Egler, a Swiss watchmaker he had met when he was working for Kuna Korten. Egler was renowned for his e-watches, which were high-quality mechanisms used to manufacture wristwatches. Owing the high-quality mechanisms provided by Egler, the wristwatches manufactured by Wilsdorf were extremely accurate. In 1905, Wilsdorf and Davis placed a record-breaking order for e-watches with Egler and got into a long-term partnership with the wristwatch manufacturer, which allowed them to source this vital component for a cheaper price. In 1906, Wilsdorf and Davis released their first wristwatches with bracelet designs, which got the approval of the British and Swiss population. Wilsdorf and Davis sold their wristwatches without branding them for almost 3 years, but Hans knew that if he wanted to charge a premium for high-quality wristwatches he was producing, he would have to create a brand identity of his luxury products. Hans had a tough time deciding the name of the brand, and he said the following in an interview: "I tried combining all the letters of the English alphabets in every possible way. This gave some 100 names, but none of them felt quite right. It was one morning when I was looking on the upper level of the double-decker cart in London, when a good genie whispered in my ear, 'Rolex.' A few days after this fruitful journey, the Rolex brand was filed and then officially registered in Switzerland by Wilsdorf and Davis. By 1909, Rolex was regarded as one of the most well-reputed brands in the watchmaking industry because of their path-breaking innovations and fresh designs. Over the next decade, hundreds of exquisite models were designed and launched throughout the British Empire and in the Eastern countries. The new fashion watches became extremely popular in countries like Great Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. Talking about the exponential success of his business strategy, Hans wrote in his autobiography, "Generally speaking, the wristlet watch was bound to bring about a certain revolution in the industry, a naturally caused increase in sales, not only on account of its novelty, but also because by its very nature calls for more frequent replacements." In 1914, Rolex received wristwatch chronometer rating by Switzerland and the prestigious Class A certificate of precision by the British Kew Observatory. This added credibility to the brand. Rolex then transitioned into manufacturing watches with a silver dial and leather straps. Subsequently, due to the high demand for the silver watches, Hans released the same model made in gold. Rolex soon expanded into the jewelry market. We will now discover the reason behind the relocation of Rolex's headquarters from England to Switzerland. During the First World War, the British government implemented a 33% export duty on luxury items. This export duty was applicable to the Rolex watches, which had already transitioned from being an affordable watchmaker to a high-end luxury watchmaker. In 1919, Rolex shifted their base from London to Bienne in Switzerland to avoid paying this import duty. The next year, they shifted their headquarters to Geneva, which has continued to be Rolex's home till date. The First World War, however, was equally important to the success of Rolex, as it helped them gain a cult status. When many other watch companies closed shop because of the lack of demand, Rolex's business was booming because the army was interested in procuring the wristwatches manufactured by Rolex for their soldiers. Rolex's wristwatches were more convenient to wear for the soldiers at war as compared to the bulky pocket watches. The high-quality wristwatches were precise in telling time as compared to other brands, thereby aiding the soldiers in planning and executing coordinated attacks. If you're enjoying the video, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to earn enough money to buy a Rolex, check out the link in the video description section below for my favorite way to earn money through the power of YouTube without making any videos. Rolex's popularity grew thanks to the First World War, and in 1925, Hans and his team decided to step up their branding game by coming up with the exquisite crown design that is present above Rolex's logo and found on all of their watches, positioned on the dial, giving it an exquisite look. One of the biggest reasons for Rolex's success was Hans's pursuit for perfection. His focus soon turned to the moisture and dust leakage under the dial and crown, which harmed the movement and resulted in the watch showing inaccurate time after a long duration of usage. Rolex hired a specialist third-party case maker, Paul Perregaux, to create a waterproof and dust-proof timepiece for Rolex in 1926 to solve this issue, and it was given the moniker Oyster. Rolex bought the rights to the innovation from Paul. The watch's hermetically sealed case gave the movement the best possible protection. The Rolex Oyster was a path-breaking innovation and is regarded as the world's first ever waterproof wristwatch. Hans employed a smart marketing strategy to draw the public's attention to the Rolex Oyster. In 1927, Rolex chose a few watch retailers in each town to serve as their exclusive distributors and gave them an aquarium filled with fish and plants, and instructed them to dip the Rolex Oyster watch in the aquariums and put the aquariums up as window displays on their shops. Wilsdorf extensively spent in advertising after realizing the introduction of the Rolex Oyster represented a significant opportunity for increasing revenue. Mercedes Glitze was an English swimmer who made a bold statement that she could swim from England to France across the English Channel, which is almost 21 miles long. She was challenged to do this, and Hans saw this as an opportunity to advertise the Rolex Oyster. He made her the first brand ambassador for Rolex. Sadly enough, she wasn't able to complete the challenge and managed to swim for about 80% of the distance because of the freezing cold temperature of the water. But when she was rescued from the water, the Rolex Oyster watch around her neck was in tip-top condition and was telling the accurate time. We've just uncovered the story of how Hans built and popularized Rolex from the ground up. Check this video right here if you'd like to understand how Rolex became such an important part of pop culture and why everyone from the former US president to James Bond owns one. Click here to check this video out.